All right, episode one, black hole theories. Welcome
We're
aboard.
doing it. Black hole theories.
Let's do it, man. I'm stoked. I'm stoked to do this podcast. I'm really, really excited. Um, yeah, a lot of weird shit going on.
Yeah.
A lot of weird close encounter situations, especially what happened. I believe it was on January 2nd or so, right after New Year's
Yeah.
in Bayside in Miami. A whole bunch of
So you
people.
just want to get right into it. You don't even want to tell the people what this podcast is and why we started it or nothing.
Should we?
I
Should
think
we?
I think we
Should we?
should. So I mean,
Cool.
what we were texting yesterday about the name because we've been brainstorming the name of this podcast for weeks, right? For
Hmm.
anybody who doesn't know us, Christian over here has been making UFO content on TikTok and on YouTube a little bit. He interviewed James Fox recently. Um, so he reached out to me. Also, been creating UFO conspiracies, ancient Egypt content on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, as has he. And so we had this idea. He had this idea to come together and create a podcast together where we can talk about all this stuff on a more regular basis without having such the high production and the high scripts or the scripts and the heavy post production. More of a free form conversation to where we can actually be still putting out our thoughts on all of these recent updates that come up week by week, it seems like, especially as we go into an election year. So I think it was right time, right place, the right people came together. And as we said last night, we were brainstorming the names for a week at least, and black hole
Yeah.
theories kind of came up. And it was what I shot over to you, but the reason why I like it is because it implies inherently that we can talk about space, we can talk about conspiracy theories, because I think of it as like an oxymoron. Like black hole and theories don't inherently go together like conspiracy theories in space. They're not like intertwined, but they all kind of are of the same type of topic. But I also think just it sounds funny, when you tell it to someone, black hole
Yeah.
theories. What are your thoughts on that? And kind of like
Yeah.
what we were talking about last night.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a diverse name that we could just use for basically anything. I mean, the premise of this podcast, I guess the majority of the things that we'll be talking about would be, I guess conspiracy related, esoteric stuff, things that that open up people's curiosities, And primarily one of the things that, I've been, I guess, passionate about is the UFO subject and the disclosure process that is currently underway. As you've covered a lot of UFO videos on your
Yeah.
channel too, uh, and I think that we're living in the midst of something that is very, very big and something that will change a lot of our lives for sure over the next, I don't know, depending on the calendar that they have set for disclosure, which is something that we'll definitely touch base on in
I
this
have a
show
question for
for
you,
sure.
man. Do you actually think that anything that we do or say, not just you and I, but anybody who makes content around UFO disclosure, do you think it's actually ever going to make a difference? The reason why I say this before
That's a
you
good
answer
question.
that, all right? The reason why I say this is because
Yeah.
I went to a recent, like a MUFON meeting in Phoenix, Arizona.
Mhm.
MUFON is the civilian ran like UFO research organization where they research and look into sightings that get reported and whatnot. And they have like the different groups in all the major cities, right? So I went to a Phoenix one. It was like 20 bucks to go to or something. And what I noticed there was the average age of everybody there was like at least 60 years old. That was probably the median age there. So I was very surprised by that. I was significantly one of the youngest people there. And then secondly,
Yeah.
the lady who runs it, Stacy Wright, she's like the director of the Phoenix MUFON or whatever. She mentioned something that really stuck with me, which is back in the 80s, they thought they were this close to disclosure. Back in the 90s, they thought they were this close to disclosure. Today, we think we're this close to disclosure, yet it's never come. And I think for me, it's caused me to move the goalposts of what do I actually think may or may not happen. Like, I don't necessarily expect sleepy Joe Biden to get up in front of America and lose his train of thought after telling us that aliens exist or whatever, right? But I just don't expect the president to
Yeah.
ever come out and make an official announcement. I feel like the only way it's going to
Mhm.
happen is through just unclassified documents in slow drip, like it is, which means that nobody's ever going to make a big deal out of it because it's all slow drip. And then, secondly,
Mhm.
unless there was some massive sighting that was just impossible to cover up, that millions of people saw, I just don't imagine anything that we do really makes a difference. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thought is that there is currently another Cold War per se taking place right now. In that there's many other countries right now that have recovered UFO material, craft, whatever you want to call it. And right now it's kind of like an arms race, but instead of arms race, it's an actual alien technology race. Um, a lot of people are speculating that the first country that will disclose extraterrestrial technology will have an advantage over another country. That's something that I've heard that could be happening behind closed doors. There's reporters and people that I've seen talk about that. That kind of makes you question, like, what if this is actually what's going on? And that's why is that why is the topic of UAPs and all these videos that are coming out. TMZ just released that video of what looks like a jellyfish.
Yeah.
uh, and you're seeing it more on the news. I know that the UFO thing, it's had a negative history of, like, stonewalling, right? It's been stonewalled time and time again, and it feels like there's no end to it. But I think that in 2017, what really happened in December of 2017, the New York Times article, that was like the first real publication that really opened up the eyes of a lot of people, and from there it's just kind of been back to back. um, Now I get annoyed. I really do get annoyed myself, and I don't know if this is like my ego talking, or if it's just like when are you just going to release the full stuff, like the full evidence? We want give me a nugget, something serious, something that can you know make it stand out 100% rather than just speculation. A lot of it lately, including with like David Grush, the statements made by David Grush, a lot of them are just statements and without any physical evidence. And that's something that's so frustrating because you know there's so many eyewitness testimonies, there's so many people that have had accounts, people that have experienced things, and people with classified information, and it's just getting so frustrating. Um, it's getting frustrating. But I do think that there is, an arms race just with UAP technology, and I think that that's why disclosure has been kind of expedited, and it feels like it has been expedited. You don't think that you don't think that it's become more, I don't know, public?
Um, well, I guess for us, it would be hard to say because, I wasn't around in the 70s and the 80s and whatnot, but I feel like people have been, pretty knowledgeable of this stuff. I did a video about JFK and, his UFO connection, and that was in the 60s, right? And back then there was newspaper articles about all of this stuff, right? Newspaper articles were involved in Roswell, were involved in the Kenneth Arnold sighting even before that, right? So this stuff has been reported in the media. It's been a topic of conversation in science fiction movies, right? And so that has kind of been a little bit of that slow drip. I just feel like it's my opinion is there's so much to it that there's no way possible that everything's going to get released, right? Because that obviously involves releasing defense secrets. It also involves maybe admitting to some crimes here and there, right? So I think
Yeah.
we may get glimpses with random whistleblowers, But I hate to say it, the thing about Grush is we're taking him at his word, but he's never actually experienced any of it. He's never seen any of it. He's
Yeah.
literally just giving you hearsay. I mean, by the definition of the word. And so, it's like, hey, my friend says they saw someone murder somebody. Well, would that make me a great witness in that trial case? No, you know. So, I'm just thinking about it, I guess, as logically as possible. I'm hopeful. I want to believe. I'm literally having a podcast where we talk about this stuff, and also a YouTube channel and a TikTok. Like, I'm obviously interested in this topic. I want it to be real. I guess I'm just being realistic with myself. Like,
Yeah.
it seems like every time we get a little bit of this slow drip, I almost start to wonder, what are they trying to cover up? There's so much stuff going
Mhm.
on right now, as far as the lists of the of the person whose name I won't say, who had an island, right? Because this is YouTube. I don't know what will or won't get
Mhm.
demonetized, right? But apparently some of those files came out right around the same time as this Miami Mall incident. And if you want to talk about the Miami Mall incident, um, I mean, at first,
Yeah.
again, it's such a catchy thing that goes so viral. But I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, like, they have so many videos of the fights that were going on, which is the official reason why all those cops were there. But there's no videos of these 8 to 10 foot tall aliens. The only reason that we even think there were aliens is because people are making videos on social media saying, I was there and we saw these aliens, right? But we don't know who these people are. They're just random people making videos on the internet, right? On Twitter and whatnot. And
Yeah.
so it kind of
Yeah.
started this rumor to where I just don't know that I believe it. I think I'm calling bullshit on this, right? But that's just because, what's more likely, that a rumor started about aliens at the mall because there was a lot of cops there, or that there was 8 to 10 foot tall shadow beings lasering people from the shadow realm?
It, it is sketch though, bro. It is pretty sketch that that many cops showed up. I mean, if you think about it, that was a lot of cops.
It was a lot of
I
cops.
don't think mass shooting situations would have that many cops.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I
That's what's sketchy. That along with the people, I mean, there's a lot of clout chasers
Yeah,
online. I mean, that's a
right.
fact, right?
I
But
would consider
at
myself
the
one
end of
of
the
them.
day, I mean, I mean, yeah, but I mean, there's like real try hard
Yeah.
clout chasers out there, like people who are trying so hard, man. And you know, I look, man, I want to believe it too, and there are some pretty convincing testimonies. I feel like the reason why there's no video or documentation is because a lot of them they did say that, oh, why didn't anyone record? There's if there was that many people. I mean, if you were to see something like that up close and personal, what would you do? Would you pull out the camera?
Um, well, I guess I have seen something like that up close and personal. If you know about my Hat Man story or whatever,
Yeah.
which apparently is like a big trend now. Like, a lot of people are seeing this. But at the time this happened to me, I was just in high school. This wasn't like a trend. This is something that I learned about years later after having experienced it myself and going, holy shit, there's something to this. I'm not crazy, right? But at the
Hmm.
time, camera phones weren't really a thing. But what I could say about my experience with the shadow person is, if there was like, if the TV was on, the shadow wasn't there. But even if the room was completely dark, right? So it was like, when I turn off the TV and all like electronics and whatnot are off in the room, and the room is pitch black, then I could see the shadow. I guess that's kind of I guess I just kind of went on a tangent there. But to answer your question, I don't know. I guess I definitely see the argument of, like, if you're so scared of something that you've never seen or witnessed before, that you're last thought is to pull out the camera. I get it, right?
Yeah,
But there's not one video, and there's so many people, but there's also video of actual fights and people running around, right? So no video
I know.
of that. And if that happened, there's got to be camera feeds in the mall, you know, there's got to be body cam feeds of any of these police officers. I mean, the footage would
Yeah,
exist if it existed. You know what I'm saying? What would it
right,
take to
right.
get access to the camera footage feed from the mall?
That's the thing. Like, where's the CCTV, right? Where's the CCTV footage? And would that be confiscated by some government entity,
Would we even know?
right? That's another
I
question.
mean,
Would we even?
we would know if like some men in black came in and, you know, talked to some cashier or like girl working behind the counter somewhere. She might say something, right? Come out on TikTok.
Yeah,
But where's all these like 4chan hackers like getting the feed to that mall? You know, I'm sure
that's a good point.
it's got to exist, right? I'm just thinking logically.
Yeah, it has to be out there, definitely somewhere, right? What happened at that specific time? And some of the accounts, if you're not familiar with the story, people have, you know, have reported that they were just shopping at the mall. I believe it was like on January 2nd, sometime around there. And out of nowhere, they see people running and screaming for their lives. And then they see these creatures emerging out of nowhere and then kind of disappearing and then reappearing, kind of like they're glitching in and out of reality. And to me, that sounds like if it were true, I mean, and I have no scientific knowledge of how anything works, period. When it comes down to, you know, realities, right? We don't even, I mean, our top scientists don't even know what, you know, if there even is multiple dimensions or if there's any kind of technology. But yeah, they were like appearing and then disappearing and then kind of glitching in and out. And apparently they looked helpless. Like the creatures, they were like really tall, 8 to 10 feet tall. They looked helpless, or kind of like not knowing what's going on. And they were like confused. And some people are theorizing, and these are just like, you know, people with creative imaginations as well. They're theorizing that they could have been lost, or like they were probably like, oh, what the fuck is going on? Like why am I here right now in Miami? You know, or like why am I here right now in this place with people running and shooting at me? Because apparently there was also guns fired or shots fired to the creatures. So, you know, there's really a lot out there that people are, I guess, you know, telling different stories. There's one guy who came out on TikTok. He told the story and then he retracted his story, you know, saying that, oh, I was just, you know, trolling you guys, whatever. But then again, who's to say that, you know, like, what if he just wanted to, he retracted his story to keep his mouth shut because someone told him to, you know, there's that back and forth. But there is another video of a of a guy talking to his dad, and his dad is a police officer, and he was asking him. He was a sheriff. He's actually a sheriff, where he's running for mayor of Miami or something like that, and he's a sheriff. And he asked him, like, he's like, Dad, what happened in Bayside? And he's like, yeah, I can't talk about it at all. Uh, and so, you know, that's another one of those videos that I found on TikTok or on
Is this a
Twitter,
video that's
now
going
X.
around right now?
Yeah, it is, and I lost it, but it is going around on X. But yeah, there's a lot of content that's being shot, and then another crazy thing that people are bringing up now is the fact that if you reverse the coordinates of Bayside, Miami, and I've been there myself, it's actually a really nice place. Um, but if you reverse the coordinates of Bayside, you get Antarctica, and Antarctica is notorious for UFO conspiracies and you know, as I'm sure you know, and I don't think you've ever covered any Antarctica videos on your
Yeah, I have
channel,
one that's a
but
little bit about it. Like, are
Yeah.
there Nazis in Antarctica with flying saucers? I think that's literally the name of the video.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, the history behind that. And so people are kind of like, I guess they're just finding ways to
So is
make sense of it.
Bayside
Uh,
Miami? Is that what you mean? Is that the same story? Okay.
yeah. Bayside
So you're
Marketplace.
saying
Yeah.
that someone
Yeah.
who's caught, like someone's father or something, was a cop that was there, and they said they couldn't talk about it? Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And let me see if I could find it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can check it out. But yeah, so first off, this is the Antarctica situation, right? So as you can see here are the coordinates, and you're better with numbers than I am, Patrick. So the coordinates are this right here, and then for Antarctica, right here, they say if you reverse it, you get the same or
Mm,
something. Yeah. So people are saying, oh, like what if these aliens just or these creatures, whatever you want to call them, what if they accidentally hit the device that teleports them to a location? They just did it in
yeah.
reverse. They intended to go to Antarctica.
But
Um,
I guess if I'm being the contrarian there, what significance does coordinates have to Miami and the mall incident? Like, specifically, are those coordinates exactly at the mall? And then secondly, Antarctica is a pretty big target, you know what I'm saying? So I'm sure a lot of coordinates might match up with a lot of places on Earth, you know what I'm saying?
right. Well, the leading theory here is that the reverse coordinates of Miami Bayside Mall are this, and then give a location in the middle of Antarctica, blah blah blah. The aliens teleported to the wrong place, meaning that
Mm,
they meant to teleport to Antarctica, which
yeah.
is, I guess, their hub. But instead, they landed in
Yeah.
Miami.
And that's obviously like a tongue-in-cheek theory. I mean,
It is.
it's it's an interesting idea, I guess, you know.
It is. It is. And let's hear this woman's take on
Listen,
it.
they put the coordinates in backwards. They reversed them. Listen, y'all, listen. The
I'm
Miami incident,
listening.
right? Or at the mall. I was watching one of the victims, and he said that it seemed like a portal opened up, and all of a sudden these beings just came through. So it got me thinking, well, where did they come from? Well, they had to come through a portal. So just for shiggles, I went to Google Earth,
Just for
went to the
shiggles.
mall, got the coordinates,
Just for
flip flopped the
shiggles.
coordinates, put that in Google Earth, and just to see where it would take me, it took me to the center of Antarctica. Do y'all remember what I was talking about? How there's an alien civilization in Antarctica living under that ice? Do y'all remember that? Because if not, let me remind you, there's supposedly a alien race living in Antarctica. And if they were trying to go to this alien base in Antarctica, they swapped the coordinates and ended up at the fucking mall in Miami. I'm tripping. Go to Google, find the coordinates for the mall, reverse the coordinates, and it will take you to Antarctica. I shit you not. They put the
Yeah. I
I mean,
I love her
she
enthusiasm.
seems very scientifically like relevant, you know, like she should probably speak at Congress with that theory.
Well, let's test it out. Let's test it out. Let's go to Google real quick or Google
So let me
Maps,
just ask you this though.
and
They're these aliens or whatever they might have been are smart enough to build a portal, but are dumb enough to, by random chance, type in the number backwards on accident, like exactly backwards, and that
yeah.
actually leads them to Miami instead of the middle of Antarctica, right? What a happy accident.
It is a little ridiculous for sure. It is a little ridiculous. But that's just one of the crazier ones that's making rounds on,
Not just anywhere in
TikTok,
Miami,
and
the fucking mall.
literally with like hundreds of people shopping. Uh, Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. There's a lot of weird shit that's happened, but I want to know your take on Antarctica, is if that's how you
Mm-hmm.
pronounce it. What's your take on it? What have you learned about Antarctica and its relation to UFOs and uh, you know potential extraterrestrial civilizations?
Um, I mean, there's so much to Antarctica, and I think for me, it really depends on what theory you tend to believe in most when it comes to how the UFO cover up went on. I guess the
Mm,
storyline that I've heard is that at the end of World War II, some of the Nazis escaped to South America and Antarctica, potentially including Hitler himself. And in Antarctica, they basically had developed a base where they created these flying saucers. Um, and these flying saucers, they also kind of use anti-gravity technology to convert like submarines into spaceships and things like that. And back taking a step back from that, okay, where did they get the technology for the flying saucers, for the anti-gravity stuff? Well, that comes down to like what we also know about, that the Nazis had these uh Wunderwaffe or something like that. It's called the wonder weapons,
mhm.
right? And these are their top secret weapons that they were working on. Well, one of the theories, and I actually was writing a script about this for a video, but one of the theories of where they got this potentially wonder weapon was from this girl named Maria Orsic, who was just this banging hot blonde chick with really long blonde hair, and she was part of this cult in Germany. And that group, along with another group, kind of came together and formed the Nazi Party. But anyways, she claimed that she could remotely communicate through telepathic communication with these beings from a star system, um, light years away, right? And so these beings apparently, through telepathic communication, gave her the ability to like do that psychic writing thing that psychics do, and she literally drew out blueprints for an anti-gravity flying saucer. And so this is where they came out with two Nazi wonder weapons. One was the saucer shaped craft that they called Hanabu. The second one was something that they called Die Glock, which stands for the bell in German. And these are things that we know existed because we found like the blueprints and stuff of what they were working on, after World War II, when we went in and like kind of went through all the files that we could find, right? But we haven't actually found these things, right? We've never found an actual Die Glock, and we've never found these Hanabu crafts, right? But we found the blueprints for it and kind of how they theoretically worked, right? So, anyways, they go to Antarctica, they perfect these craft, and the reason why they couldn't use them as weapons during World War II was because if you're using anti-gravity, it's not as simple as just putting a fucking machine gun onto the end of it and bolting it on and then just hoping that you can shoot things that you drive by, because these gravity craft theoretically form a gravity bubble around the craft. So if you shoot a projectile, I mean, that bullet's just going to come right back at you. It's like a force field, right? So they couldn't figure out how to
Yeah.
weaponize it until they got to Antarctica, theoretically, right? And so now this brings us to after World War II. We send this huge thing called Operation High Jump down with Admiral Richard Byrd to Antarctica to potentially investigate. The official reason they went down there was to see if there was you know, if there was a path for Russia to go through the South Pole to invade America, but unofficially it was down to go down and look for, escaped Nazis or whatever. And so apparently what happened was they went down with this huge fleet, all these soldiers, all these airplanes, all these carriers, right? And they came back completely depleted months before the mission was supposed to end, theoretically having been attacked by these ships that could fly from pole to pole with incredible speed when they got to Antarctica, that had like laser beams on them and they were just shooting things down and whatnot. So there's a lot of just theories and witness accounts and all these dots connecting through Operation High Jump, through Maria Orsic and the, you know, all the blueprints that they got for the wonder weapons, to really all lead to the really deep rabbit hole of something called the Secret Space Force, which was apparently the Nazis teaming up with the reptilians who were in Antarctica, and now they're doing missions out in space. And this connects to Gary McKinnon, who hacked NASA and found out that we do have a secret space force, and he found the files of like names of non-terrestrial officers along with pictures of these craft in space. So there's a lot of things that kind of lead back to Antarctica and the Germans, and even Tom DeLonge, who has helped release a lot of these videos from the Pentagon through the To the Stars Academy. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he verbatim said he thinks Roswell was a German craft. So I don't know. But then you also hear all these other people look into Roswell and say that it was definitely not German.
But what about the occupants?
Yeah.
What about the occupants?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess it just depends on who
Yeah.
you talk to on what answer you get there. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Tom DeLonge has said a lot of crazy shit before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He seems to be on the side that, like, at least from what I'm observing, there's like two competing thoughts, right? On one side, you got the Stephen Greers who are like trying to act like, you know, these aliens are here to help us and we can contact them through meditation. And then on the other hand, you got like Tom DeLonge, Lou Elizondo, and that gang of guys, and they all think that this is a national defense you know, issue.
Problem.
You know, we need to militarize against these things and figure out if they're a threat in our airspace. So
yeah,
then you got to think, like, what's the motive? You know, is there truth to that? Is that just their genuine experience of it, or do they have competing agendas, right? And you got to think this agenda over here, there might be some ulterior motive to feed the military industrial complex that President Eisenhower warned us all about, right? And so it's hard to know who to trust. And then, you know, I've heard so many I guess negative things about people just shit talking Stephen Greer about just like the character that he has. I've never met the guy. I don't know him, but the people who I have met who claim to have met him say he's kind of a douchebag, you know, and not very trustworthy guy. So I don't know. I have no idea.
That's what I've heard too. Did you know that he was offered $2 billion to keep his mouth shut?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was apparently offered $2 billion to keep his mouth shut. Someone threatened him. I mean, they gave him an ultimatum. Essentially, they told him, "I'll pay you $2 billion to keep your mouth shut about everything that you know." And this is, I believe, it was before he founded the Disclosure Project, and so he refused. $2 billion.
Do you believe that story?
That's one of the things about Stephen Greer that makes me turn my head in the other direction.
Why is that? Because you don't believe it?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I don't. And if you could come up with a lie like that, I mean, like, it's like, dude, who are you fooling?
Who's going to give him $2 billion? Where's that money going to come from? Who would say no to that?
Exactly.
Stephen Greer's an idiot.
I mean, I'd open up a compound, bro, with that money. I'd pull Mark Zuckerberg. You hear what he's doing in California?
Like building a survival shelter, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Have you seen that movie on Netflix? It's like Just Leave the World Behind or something like that.
My wife did, yeah. And I was kind of there next to her watching it, but I was doing something else. I think I was on my phone. But I did see like little clips of it. What's your main takeaway with that? Because honestly, that film is just, in my opinion, it looks like fear-mongering. And if this is the same movie that we're talking about.
I mean, I guess definitely there might be some fear-mongering to it. When I watch movies like that, I'm not thinking of conspiratorially. I'm thinking
Yeah.
artistically, do I like the movie? Do I think it's well written? Do I think the story plays out in a really enticing and unique way? Do I like the cinematography? You know, do I like the edits? So I'm looking at movies from
Right.
that perspective. I thought the movie was a fun movie.
Yeah.
It was definitely kept me interested and on the edge of my seat. I liked the the storylines of how they kept having rising tension of like, I mean, not to give any spoilers, I guess, but you know, this random couple shows up while this couple is staying in this mansion. And it's the owner of the house, and this is like an Airbnb that they're renting out, right? And so there's a lot of like tense moments between these strangers in this world that seems to be coming to an end. And I think that along the way, you're trying to figure out like what is going on. Is this a war with another country? Is it aliens?
Mhm.
Right. And I think that, I don't know, it made for a fun movie. I guess uh
Yeah.
where I'm not happy about the ending, I guess I am getting into spoilers, is I feel like it ended in a satisfying, like it ended implying a satisfying ending, but it never, like movies like that, I get so frustrated because I feel like it's such a try hard, like douchey way to conclude a film. Like some guy probably thought it was cool. Let me just end the movie like 5 minutes before I should end the movie, and it'll be the artistic way to end the movie. So it's like you don't actually see
Hmm.
any resolution of it. That's just a personal pet peeve of like horror and
Yeah.
thriller themed movies that I have. Like if you're gonna go the 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 satisfying way to end a movie, actually give me the satisfying ending. It's like Avengers Endgame. They didn't have to show Tony Stark's funeral, but they did the audience the service of doing so.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. 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 Totally. I saw bits and pieces of it, man. And lately, I've been watching movies emotionally. Like I get emotionally invested in the movie rather than watch it from like a critical standpoint. That's something that I've been doing lately. Is just getting my emotions wrapped up and putting myself in the position of the protagonist and all that fun stuff. But yeah, no, it looked great. Yeah, it looked like a great movie, cinematographically, if that's even a word. Um, it was great. No, it was great. But yeah, man, and you know, it's those doomsday movies, man. They don't make a lot of them these days anymore. And then once that hit, I know that it exploded. It went viral.
Yeah,
Um,
a lot of people were. Did you hear about the recall with Tesla because of that movie? So
no.
one scene in the movie, um, the couple is trying to get out of town to go back and find their other family, maybe go back to their actual home, and they come upon this major road that's blocked off with all these crashed Teslas, and they get out and they realize that all the Teslas were brand new and they were all crashing into each other, just blocking the roads, blocking the major roadways. And what ended up being the thing was whatever was attacking the United States uh, ended up somehow hacking the self-driving features of all the new Teslas, and they were just driving all these Teslas into a big pile to block all major cities so nobody could leave, the major cities. So after that movie, Tesla had a major recall on all Teslas. And a lot of people thought it was because they realized, like, oh shit, maybe that could happen theoretically. So maybe the theory is that they um, basically updated all the Teslas to fill up any holes that maybe could have left them open to being hacked, if that was like what someone wanted to do.
No
Yeah,
way.
but I don't. Again, where did I hear this theory? I heard it on fucking X. So I'm just saying the timing of the recall, which seemed to be legit, did happen to
Mhm.
line up very well with the timing of that scene coming out with that movie on Netflix. So a lot of people, the conspiracy theorists, the black hole theorists,
Yeah.
they they might point to that and go, connection.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a movie. It's just the timing of it, right?
Yeah. I guess one other thing I wanted to mention earlier about the thing I like about the black hole theories name is that nobody knows what happens inside of a black hole. So, like what happens inside of a black hole, all of it would just be someone's fucking guess. I think that gives us the freedom to be
Yeah.
able to talk about a lot of these things that may or may not have a definitive answer and just give our take on that. And I think ultimately that might be something that might become part of our bread and butter on this podcast over the long term, is just giving our takes on various things that are coming up in the news. Cause I feel like, going back again, even with my channel and even with the stuff I've put out together myself and even with your stuff, like there's a lot of editing, there's a lot of scripting that goes into it that you might be mid project and all these stuff things are happening, and it's like, okay, by the
Yeah.
time I actually get around to making content around that with the script and with the post production with the editing, would it still be relevant? And I think this obviously gives us the ability to be more up to date on a lot of those things, and show up more consistently for our
Mhm.
audiences.
Definitely. Yeah. I feel like it's happened to me so many times when I'm editing something, a big project, and then things happen in between where I want to include it in the video, but I'm already so far into it in terms of completion that it's hard to kind of squeeze it in. So this is perfect for that. This is perfect for that. But going back to what's been going on, man, a lot of weird close encounter situations over the past, I would say 5 years. A lot of weird things have been happening. You remember the Las Vegas incident where
Yeah.
those that family, something landed in their backyard, and then they saw some kind of, again, 8 to 10 foot tall creature, humanoid, behind their forklift, because I guess they had like a big backyard and like construction equipment, and it was like peering behind. And then people discounted it. A lot of people discounted it as, hoax story, and a lot of credible people in the UFO community, whatever you want to call it, uh, they kind of discredited it, and with good reason, because I mean, there's no definitive proof, but a lot of these occurrences keep happening, and it makes me think that, is this because the topic is becoming more and more known, that people are just coming up with these stories, or is this phenomenon actually responding to the presence of our knowledge?
um I mean, I guess that's something that people have reported with like Skinwalker Ranch, where they feel like the phenomenon is somehow toying with them or responding to them. But I guess if we're talking about the Las Vegas incident specifically, I always go back and realize, or I guess just having to remind myself that people have been reporting seeing UFOs for decades, going back to the 40s, especially. And even before that, there's been UFO reportings going back to the 1800s, going back to Christopher Columbus times. There's UFOs painted into medieval time paintings. You know what I'm saying? And so, um, UFOs are not necessarily a new phenomenon, nor is the idea of hoaxes. And so I think when it comes back to what happened at Las Vegas, yes, you might, like, I can see where like the Miami incident and the Las Vegas incident happening within maybe a year of each other. You might wonder, like, are these the same beings that they're seeing? But I guess for me, I don't even necessarily know that I believe what happened in Miami is real or if it's just a rumor. I guess I'm still open to new evidence that comes out about that. And also with the Las Vegas thing for me, when I was looking into it at the time, it seemed like a legit story that was happening. And the people who were reporting it seemed genuine. I guess the thing that uh stood out to me is that they had like shaky cell phone video of what theoretically might have shown whatever they were looking at, but it actually, like, there was nothing to see in the video. Like, it was really hard to see anything. And if you're gonna claim that's an alien, like, okay, I'm gonna need to see a little bit something better. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, the more I looked into that, the more my gut maybe started to feel like it wasn't real. And I guess part of that might come from just the inherent skepticism that was coming from a lot of the people within the UFO community that had voices, like George Knapp and that crew of people. They seem to be utterly uninterested in this story. And, if there's one thing that, at least that I've observed about most people who are really interested in the topic of UFOs, is that they're so eager to believe that everything is real. Everything, there's nothing that's fake. And so I think for me, knowing that and observing that about most people in this community, I think for me, I've always tried to maintain a healthy level of skepticism, which has allowed me to really find some through lines that really do intrigue me because they're even harder to deny. But with the
Yeah.
Las Vegas thing, I guess the amount of people with voices in the UFO community that were calling bullshit made me start to feel like it was bullshit. And when I started to look at it through that lens, I realized there's not much to tell me that there were actually aliens in that backyard.
Right, right. There's no definitive, conclusive
Right.
proof. Therefore, you know, we can only dismiss it for the
And
time
didn't the
being.
family
You
go
know,
silent?
well, the one of the son, he actually started created a YouTube channel surrounding his experience, and he tried to garner attention that way.
And how did it work out for him?
And so he got a couple thousand, 100,000 views, but I think he just stopped making videos. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It kind of just sizzled out like every big news story. Like Bayside will in the next like week or so, if people stop, unless CCTV footage is released
I
from that
feel like
incident.
Bayside is
So
an even smaller blip on the timeline than even like the what were those, the monoliths in 2020 that were appearing in the middle of the desert,
I remember that.
you know
I
that I
remember
mean,
that.
and that one
Hmm.
happened to look ironically almost exactly like the one from the movie 2001 A Space Odyssey. So um
Yeah.
I don't even know if I believe those were a real thing, but I mean that was like a big, like, trending viral story, if you will. I mean, that one, even to
Hmm.
me, Miami feels less compelling to me than that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. 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 No, for sure. Did you ever hear about what happened in Peru? I believe it was a couple months ago. The Pelacaras. Have you heard about that?
No.
Pelacaras. Yeah. So apparently, so apparently there was a bunch of people in Peru in this small city. It's kind of like near the Amazon rainforest. They were being abducted. Some people. It was a girl specifically that she had escaped one of these creatures. They were being abducted by these reported creatures that were levitating. Essentially, they were standing up, kind of like Green Goblin
Okay.
style, on kind of like a surfboard
Yeah.
type thing, and flying and abducting people. And that area is notorious for the Pelacara mythical creature. And the Pelacara is essentially the face peeler. It means face peeler in English. And essentially, people have been found with their faces removed. Of course, dead. You can't. I don't think you could live without a
Yeah.
face. But a lot of these people have been found with their faces surgically removed entirely, and we're talking about like laser precision, um, like literally just a skull when they find their bodies. And so this girl, she was abducted, and she described the being as having like looking technological in nature, and essentially trying to mess with her face, gathering some ingredients and kind of like to poison her initially. But she managed to escape midway, And this really cool author and researcher, his name is Timothy Alberino. I've been following him for some time. He actually covered the story. He actually went out to Peru to investigate and interview the witnesses, and they all maintain that same story. It was on the news. It was like this big thing, and it just goes, back to the close encounter cases and how there. I mean, to me, I feel like I hear a lot more about it than I have ever in my life.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you
Is
have.
this a recent thing that this girl
Uh,
came out?
this was like 3 months ago, 4 months ago. Yeah, she actually had the scratches to prove that. I mean, anybody can scratch you, but like she had the scratches on her neck
Did she say how she
from when
escaped?
she I think she threw the solution that they were coming up with to poison her. She like pushed it to their face and like blinded them temporarily, and then she just ran off.
Was she in one
I
of their
think that's what
ships?
happened.
Like, were they in space?
No, it wasn't like a ship situation. Think of like Green Goblin from
Hmm.
Spider-Man. They had like some kind of technology that
So
levitates
was
them
this
and
like
like
in the
gets
middle of the
them
woods somewhere?
around. Yeah, this is like very close to the Amazon rainforest. So it's like very kind of like isolated and out
Mm.
there. Which is,
So that wouldn't necessarily
and it's
be
actually like
even alien necessarily. They're just saying some type of creature that lives in the forest.
that lives in the forest. A lot of people are theorizing that it's some kind of that is the Mexican or not Mexican. It's a drug cartel that gained access to specific technology, to a very advanced technology, and they're using that technology to peel the faces off of people to potentially, in my guess, is steal their identity. Even though
Yeah.
that's a little out there,
That sounds
you know,
wild.
but
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
it's wild. Yeah, there's an actual video of a man being pulled, and I'm still traumatized to this day. It was on X, on Twitter, and the man was being pulled out of the river, and you could see his face completely peeled off. Like you could see the bone, his entire skull exposed. And this is very similar to cow mutilations and the same kind of technology where it's like laser precision. And there's just a lot of weird things that we still don't understand and the motives behind them, right?
Yeah.
Because there's physical evidence of something that occurred, which is either, in this situation, a face that was peeled off, you know? And then, of course, you have cattle mutilations where you have the physical evidence, but what happened, And that's one of the ones that really does get me to this day.
Hmm.
Uh, but, but yeah, it's apparently like a big legend in Peru, in that area of Peru. A lot of people reported to be, attempted to be abducted. They shot at it with guns and nothing would penetrate
Hmm.
them. They were basically impenetrable. They were immoral per
Yeah.
se to our weapons. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting case, and thankfully no one like died from that incident, and they were able to escape, which is pretty cool. And they were able to tell that story. But I feel like more investigation is required, and I feel like more people need to, I guess, hear about that because I don't think it trended that much. Um, but yeah, man, it's just nuts. It's nuts.
It
Um,
reminds me of that movie or that show Halo. Have you watched that? The new show about Halo. It's like based on the game.
yeah, yeah. I got to like episode 5 before I kind of fell
Oh,
off.
really?
Um, Yeah, man. I'm a Halo. I guess I'm a Halo fan
Yeah.
per se. Like I have played Halo before. I actually just recently played part one all the way to like Halo Infinite, like about a year ago, and I liked the show. Could have been better, but yeah. What did that remind you of in Halo?
Um because they had like futuristic looking armor that was impenetrable to like regular bullets and stuff.
Yeah,
Um and that's what you
yeah,
were saying. And yeah, I don't know, but
yeah.
the movie or the show itself, yeah, I don't know how I felt about it at first, like around the middle of the season, like you were saying. I was wondering if I should keep going, but uh I started to get sucked into the character building. And I think that was originally what put me off. I was like, just give me more action. I want fight scenes. I want action like the
Yeah.
video game. And the movie was just, or the show itself felt very slow because it was a lot of character development. Um and I guess, by the end of it, I feel like it actually worked. I like what they did with the characters because we've never seen what Master Chief looked like. I think the actor was perfect playing him.
That was cool. I like the actor. Me too. I was like, damn, they chose a good actor. Now I could see who Master Chief is underneath the mask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was still kind of, I don't know. It was a little cheesy, I guess, in my opinion, the way he just kept
Some
kept,
parts,
kept
yeah.
going back to whatever that keystone is. And then like I was really confused because that blonde chick who was like evil, you remember her?
Mm-hmm.
She, like, the way they made it look is I thought they were like brother and sister. And then they kind of came together and
Yeah.
started making out. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know this is one of those shows. And I guess they never really resolved that. Like, are they brother and sister or are they long lost friends and soulmate lovers? And then, like,
Yeah.
I guess you haven't seen towards the end of the show where
Nah.
what her fate turns out to be, but yeah, I mean, I just have a lot of questions because even the
Mm,
way that her character arc played out, I'm just like, okay, then what's the point of having this chick here in the first place? You know what I'm saying? But
right.
I guess I'm excited to see
Yeah. Plot hole.
season number 2 because that's coming out soon. You
Yeah.
know?
And you kept saying movie because it is movie like
Yeah.
quality. Uh, it felt like a movie. I liked it. I thought it was a solid 6, 7, 7 out of 10.
I
Um,
give it a 7
I
1,
do want to see an improvement.
7.1.
7. Yeah. Yeah, it was decent. They should make more video game adaptations. Like lately, I've been playing Alan Wake 2. You ever played Alan Wake?
No, I have not.
Yeah, Alan Wake is a crazy, trippy game where you play as this writer, and the writer literally changes reality as he knows it. Essentially, um, it's really really cool. Yeah, it's so trippy. I can't even like elaborate on it, but it's a really cool game, Alan Wake 2. Um, but yeah, man. So going back to the well, we got to talk about the TMZ video, but I also do wanted to talk. I also wanted to talk about the um, the recent testimony from one of the guys that was there at Bayside Mall, and to me, he sounds very believable. And I wanted to get your take on it, on what you think, his explanation of his experience is. So let me go ahead and show you real quick. I have it pulled up. Um, yeah, it's kind of blowing up right now. The video is blowing up big time.
Okay.
Misfits. I was there at the Bayside Mall with my family, um, and we all saw exactly what happened. Um, don't like pay attention to a lot of the videos that are out there. I feel like a lot of people are trying to use this for clout. But what happened, we all saw what happened, and it's pretty serious. It's been a few days, but and our whole family's processing it. But I think we've kind of like accepted that we were a part of this weird experience and moment. So basically, what happened was I was there with my brother Brian, and my sister and my nephew. We were looking for shoes for my nephew, and then we see a whole crowd of people outside the store, just running out in a direction. So, as soon as we saw it, we were like, oh shit, what's going on? So we immediately ran out with our nephew, and we picked him up and we ran out and we followed the crowd. And then about like a few seconds later, as soon as we started running, my nephew, he's autistic, so he was pointing behind us and he was saying blanky, which he'll usually say whenever he feels unsafe or scared. Um, and he was pointing behind us. So me and my brother, we look behind us, and then we see these 3, 9, 10 foot tall creatures. I'm not gonna say aliens. Everyone keeps saying it's aliens. I'm not saying aliens because I don't know what it was. None of us really knew. Everyone, all of us stopped in our track. We, a whole bunch of people were pointing at it. I mean, there were other people running. Um, there was a crowd. As soon as it made itself more apparent, um, it looked like it was glitching, not like a computer pixelation, but like a wavy glitch. And whatever maybe was covering them had, unveiled or whatever. Um, yeah, it looked like a glitch, man. It like a weird glitch in the Matrix or whatever. And then you could see it in its full form, all three of them. And then, they were all black. You saw eyes, and you could faintly see like lips. But yeah, I was about like 20 feet away, because obviously everybody gave it distance, right? And they're tall, so we all just like looked at them. They were just standing there, and the thing that was a little bit weird, well, it was clearly like observing us. It was sentient, right? Like, or whatever. I mean, I don't know, but it was aware of us. It looked at us, the whole crowd, and then as soon as it started walking with its big legs, like kind of like it started like almost glitching again, we all ran. My brother like immediately said, "Yo, let's go." He grabbed me by the shoulder. We bolted out of there. And for anyone that's like saying, where's the footage? Where's the footage? Yeah, I know. I don't have any footage, and I'll explain why. Because like when I saw it, I was in complete fear. It was something that I completely froze, man. I don't care if I sound like a bitch about it. Like, I froze. And I don't care who you are. I feel like when you're seeing something paranormal, it's different than when you're seeing a fight. Yeah, you'll probably want to record that and put it on World Star or whatever. When you see something paranormal, that's different. Because your reality, you can't comprehend what you're seeing. A fight, you kind of get it. Two people are fighting. You can comprehend that. Something like this, none of us could comprehend. Your first instinct is like, it ain't to like take out your phone and start recording. Your first instinct is like, I've never seen this before. What is this? Is it gonna hurt me or my family? That was my first number one priority. So if you don't believe me, I get it. It's fine. Like, it is silly. I'm sure that someone had footage from that night. If you did, please contact me just so like, we actually have it. So anyways, as soon as the creature started moving, we all just jetted out there. We ran out the front doors. And obviously, like, we see a whole sea of cop cars, mad cop cars, where other ones were coming in. And we ran with our nephew, and then a cop stopped us. They took us a little to a bit of a safer area behind behind the cars. And then and they asked us what we saw, and we told them what we saw. They wrote it down, and they asked everybody to check their phones. Not everybody, because there was mad people like running away too, right? They couldn't get everyone. So I'm wondering if someone's gonna post a video. But yeah, they looked through everyone's phone. I didn't record anything, so I was fine. None of us recorded anything, so we were basically free to go. But in the distance, you could still see like, I didn't see the beings come out the door, right? But you could see on the side of the building, kind of like that clip that everyone's seeing, that it was slowly walking, and it was like, it wasn't cloaking or glitching or whatever. It was walking. So I don't know if it seemed more like it was an interdimensional thing. Someone's coming into our dimension or whatever, a bunch of them. And I think, that it was just interesting, the police response, because there was a whole bunch of them. This ain't for no teenagers. No, this was for something way bigger. And it almost seemed like the cops had like a already made strategy for it, because they surrounded one of the beings with like all their police cars. They blared it up even louder because you could hear that it was louder. Um, maybe as an attempt to like distract it or let it know, like, hey, you don't belong here, right? And they were trying to like slowly move alongside with it. But I didn't see anything else after that because me and my family, we got out of there. We went into our car. We went home because we had our nephew with us, and we went to make sure like he was okay. Um, so I'm still kind of like processing everything. Like it's weird.
So what do you think?
What are your thoughts?
So that's the second time I've seen that video. I haven't seen the full video. That looked like the full video. So like the first half of it, like yesterday or something. Um, my first thought when I first saw his face moving was his face looks fake. His face looks AI. Um, that's what I thought when I first
Really?
saw that. And that was yesterday. I was watching it on like Instagram. So at first I was watching without the volume until I like clicked the volume on. I was like, this guy's face looks fake. And for me, I was like, I listened to what he was saying, it was about the same as what other people who have made similar style videos are. Like I've probably seen 4 of these things now where it's like they're recording on their phone, they're sitting in front of some random wall somewhere, and they're just talking about, yeah, I saw these aliens at the thing. But I guess it's hard. I mean, other than trying to read if they're acting or if they're lying or whatever, I have nothing else to base off of. Is this person legit? Were they actually there? Show me a photo of you actually there on that night. Show me something that you got, or else I have to take your
Yeah.
word at face value. Secondly, I mean, if I'm just basing it off of trying to read him and it is a real person and he was actually there, I mean, he seems like he's being legit. I would be very curious to feel his energy, being in the same room as this guy, asking him questions about it. Because it seems like he's genuinely telling an experience that he had, as far fetched as the experience might sound. Right. And I could also believe if there were that many police there and if this was actually happening, I could definitely see the police, we don't know what the government does or doesn't know. So maybe they do have protocol for how to handle interdimensional beings at the Miami Mall, right? But at the same time, how many Miami police officers are there? And how many Miami police officers were there that night? And do all of them know that strategy just in case interdimensional beings arrive at the Bayside Mall? And if so, how does that get kept secret from everyone else? Secrets are so tempting for a lot of people to tell. Like there's actually marketing tactics revolved around making things sound secret. That way people talk about them with their friends. You know what I'm saying? Because it's reverse psychology. So the fact that, and that's always been the argument against government UFO disclosure, is like, oh, not one person would tell somebody. But that's the thing, is there are whistleblowers, right? um and at the same time with this, I would imagine that, I mean, there's the requirements to become a police officer are not like the requirements to become a doctor. It's far easier that
Right.
some random,
You don't need it. Right. You don't need like a security clearance to be a
right,
cop,
you
right?
just need to pass, a psychological test and then like go to
Yeah.
fucking police school or whatever, right? But
Yeah. And you would assume if there was a protocol to handle interdimensional
more people would
situations,
talk about
I mean,
it.
you would need, right. Well, yeah. And you would need first you would need an NDA, but you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know. It
I see
just
where you're
seems a
getting at.
lot far fetched,
But
you know?
I do feel, yeah, I do feel him though on like, my first, if I was out by myself, I'd pull out my phone and like immediately
Yeah.
record if I saw that shit. But if I was like with my daughter or like with my wife and my baby, I'd I'd dip. They're my first priority. Which in this case, he mentioned that he was, his brother was his first priority. He also mentioned that the police were taking their people's phones and scanning them. That's what he said, right?
Yeah, he did mention
Like
that.
for
Yeah.
pictures. Yeah. Which, could also be made up, but
I'd be
yeah.
curious for someone to look into that guy's actual background. Does he even live in Miami? And at the same time, like,
Right.
it always kind of comes back to like the probability of one option versus the other, right? What's more likely, that people see a trend to get views on TikTok and Instagram by making a video claiming they were at the mall, and then just making these videos fueling the flames, or that there were 8 to 10 foot tall shadow beings at the mall? Like, what's more likely? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
And I guess where,
Exactly.
I kind of had this realization, this light bulb moment, maybe earlier this year, because I have a YouTube channel where I obviously talk about UFOs and conspiracies and whatnot. And so I've met like a handful of people in 2023 where, um, you know, they might find out what I do for a living, and I tell them I make YouTube videos about conspiracies and whatnot. And then that kind of fuels like conversation. And one of the things that ends up happening is I ask them if they've ever seen anything, right? And within like maybe 2 or 3 months, I had like 4 people in a row tell me that they've seen a physical craft UFO, right? None of these people knew each other. They were just 4 independent instances that I happened to have over the course of a few months, where I just randomly met these people. And like 4 people told me that they have not only seen a UFO, but it was up close and it was a physical craft, not just a light in the sky, right? And so they describe these things. I'm talking to all of them. They all seem very genuine, recounting the experience. And then afterwards, after I had this many people tell me they've seen a UFO, I had to think to myself, what is more likely? That all 4 people have seen a UFO when I've never seen a UFO, and there's not a lot of pictures of UFOs out there, right? Or that at least one of these 4 people is making this shit up. What's more likely? And I think, unfortunately, even if I individually think that all of them are being genuine, all of them are telling me exactly what happened, and they all didn't seem like they were lying, like genuinely, right? I still think it's more likely that at
Yeah.
least one of them is full of shit than that they actually saw a fucking physical craft,
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. There's a difference though between seeing something in the sky and actually having a close encounter. Um, I feel like we should put the focus on close encounters now that UFOs are becoming more mainstream. And I feel like everyone wants to see a
Yeah.
UFO. But have you met someone that wants to see an actual ET? Um, you know, I feel like that's the new talking point is we're already past UFOs. Now let's focus on the actual occupants or the reported occupants of these craft. And I feel like, yeah, like a lot of people like to, you know, come up with. So you mean to tell me that the one out of the 4 people that you spoke with completely made that up?
I'm saying that if I had to put
Or like the
like if I
chances are
had
high?
to put money on one or the other, like, did
Yeah,
they all see alien spacecraft from another galaxy, or is at least one
right.
of them full of shit? And so I
Yeah,
I'm I'm gonna have to go
yeah,
with Occam's razor approach, on that one, and same with
yeah.
Miami Mall. Like, unfortunately, I think maybe it's because AI has gotten so advanced in the last 6 months, even, that I'm just like so skeptical of half the shit I see on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok now, right?
Yeah.
Um, and even with the government stuff, I don't even know how I feel about it, because it feels like people are trying to push for disclosure now more than ever, but also, like I
Hmm.
told you earlier, people have felt like disclosure is closer than it's ever been for decades, and it still hasn't come officially, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
David Grush, I think, in my opinion, the whole story has new life to it, or it feels completely different if he's physically seen these things. Like if he was someone who was actually in the know, the whole thing that makes me even question that is one, the timing of it. I mean, we're coming into an election year, which would be interesting to see how that may or may not affect UFO disclosure effort. It seems like UFO stuff, or even just like the Miami Mall incident, happens to really coincide with a lot of stuff that the government is trying to not make mainstream news, like we talked about with a recent island that a lot of celebrities were going to, and that guy went to prison or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so it seems as though it's almost too good to be true. And the thing about this that makes it not good enough for me to really fully sink my teeth into is I don't know that I necessarily trust the credibility of David Grush. Not saying he's not credible, but he's as credible as I am for telling people what a female orgasm feels like. I have no idea. I've never experienced that, right?
Yeah.
So who am I to
Right.
speak on it?
I trust him.
Okay. Why is that?
Yeah. I don't know. He has a, like, when I pay attention to, his conversations and all of his interviews, he comes across as genuine, as if there's nothing to really lose. Um, when I hear him talk, I mean, he's putting himself in a position that is unfavorable for his personal life. If you really think about it, he, and he made it evident, and I think he actually spoke on it, that his personal life was affected. And doing this was like a careful, very careful consideration. You know, uh, I think that,
Well, I guess let's talk about that. So the way his personal life was affected is a couple of things that we know. And I only know this because I literally live
right.
streamed myself watching the whole press conference or whatever. But on one
Mm,
hand, we know that his medical records were leaked, and that's real, right? And all that came out of that. All that came out of that was the fact that they revealed he had severe PTSD, was at one point maybe even suicidal, and also dealt with alcohol issues, right? And maybe that ruined his life from an embarrassment standpoint, from maybe even trying to shred his credibility. And I get that. Um, but at the same time, right, it's still there. And so it's not like when I think about the UFO conspiracy, medical records getting leaked is very different than getting visited by men in black in the middle of the night telling me to shut my mouth. You know what I'm saying? And
right.
so that's
Yeah.
where we might take something that happened and draw a lot of assumptions out of that, or even conclusions or hypotheses, right? But we got to remind ourselves that these are all just theories. And as much as I would love it to be true, yeah, I guess I can see where you come from as far as like trusting the guy. But I guess I'm just trying to think,
Yeah. It's not like I blindly
right?
trust. Right. Like, I don't blindly trust. I listen to them and I give them the benefit of the doubt. I've seen the Jesse Michaels show with David Grush. I saw the Joe Rogan Experience. I've seen, many interviews that he's done, and I'm like, dude, this guy's, I mean, he's coming across as legit. There hasn't been any kind
Yeah.
of, he hasn't said anything that has made me think otherwise, and so that's why I lean more towards
He
believing
did
him.
lead,
You feel me?
he did talk about something where something traumatic happened to him as a form of retaliation from the government. Because I don't know if you remember, they were at the Congress people were asking him questions, and he was saying like yes, no, or I can't get into that, right? And
Yeah.
he alluded to the fact that he has felt like his life was at risk, or people around him's life were at risk, but we don't know any details of that. So I guess when I think about someone like David Grush, he seems like, obviously, an intelligent person with a military background, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't put it past military organizations or the CIA or the FBI. I don't put it past any of them to have highly trained disinformation agents who are the best at lying or perpetrating narratives,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So until I know more about
Yeah.
Rush and more about these things that he claims he can't say unless we get the right clearances and the right rooms, which also hasn't been able to happen. Not sure if you've kept up with that. All these Congress people who were
Yeah.
promised that if we get into a skiff, we can talk about that. And that was like the big thing. Oh, I can't get into that. I can't get into that. Well, guess what? They got approved for these skiffs and we're not getting anything. Right. So there's something so fishy about this entire thing to me. I can't quite tell you what it is. I don't even know that it's necessarily Grush himself. But there's something a little bit off about this. You see where I'm coming from?
No, I do see where you're coming from. Who knows if all these people that are coming out are disinformation agents, right? What is the purpose of the publicity? Is it personal interest? Is it, you know, I know that there's a group within the Pentagon that is in favor of disclosure, right? They're in favor of disclosing the technology, right? And with the disclosure of the technology comes the disclosure of the entities or the non-human biologics who manufactured them, right? And so it makes me wonder if, if, like you said, they are disinfo agents, but what are they trying to confuse us about?
Or what are they trying to distract us from?
Right. What are they trying to, yeah, take us away from? You know,
Or
what are some of your theories
I
on
mean,
that?
there's so many moving parts to this massive chess game of government and elections or whatever. And anything I would say would be by definition a conspiracy theory because I am probably the least qualified person to speak on politics, right? Um I just
Yeah, same.
I don't know. You know, I think there's a lot of complications that go into us literally coming into an election year. This has been an ongoing story since Biden came into office the last election year, right? I mean, 2020 is
Dude,
when
I
a
would blow
lot
my
of
brains
those
out if,
fucking Pentagon videos were actually
yeah,
confirmed, right? And so this has been an ongoing
yeah,
story for 4 years now, and it's Grush. At first, it was the Tic Tacs, then it was the cubes. Now it's Grush. Tomorrow it'll be something else, and it feels like we're so close yet so far away. And I don't know. I guess I'm curious to see how this pans out over the course of the next year.
really the next,
Eh,
yeah, next year, next several months, even.
Yeah.
Can you imagine Joe Biden being our disclosure president?
No. I'm surprised he's
I
still in
couldn't even.
office. I'm surprised that we live in a community where you can't even call out the fact that this man has no mental capacity to lead anything at this point. He can barely lead himself to the restroom. So why are we letting him lead a group of the most powerful people?
Yeah,
And so a lot of people don't even think that he's the one who's calling the shots. I personally would find it hard
he's
to
not.
believe that he is, even if he claimed he was. And at this point, I think it's sad that we're like, I almost feel bad for the guy at this point. Why are we letting him make a fool of
Yeah,
himself? Why are we letting him live out this fantasy when of being the president of the United States when he's no longer mentally able to do so? I think it's not only doing a disservice to everyone, but it's doing a disservice to him. You know, like let him go out with some dignity, right? This is not the way. And so, um, and like, don't even I don't know if he's going to run for reelection, but for his sake, I hope he knows when to step down. It's like Brett Favre at some point had to admit to himself, I'm no longer capable of doing what I was doing 20 years ago. All right, hang up the cleats,
yeah,
my man, Sleepy Joe over there. At the end of the day, I
it's time.
don't care necessarily like I I'm not super into politics. Like I don't like I obviously look into it enough to where I can know where I agree upon some certain things and don't agree, but it's not something that I necessarily like to preach from the mountaintops. I don't care what you do with your life.
Right.
And as long as you and your choices, even if they're different from my viewpoints and my choices, I don't care. I don't care because I'm going to go about my day. I'm going to do what I'm doing, regardless of who's president or what you're doing with your life and who you voted for. Right. But at the end of the day, I just
Right.
want someone in that position who at least has the mental and physical capacity to take on a job that's as important as the president of the United States. How that affects UFO disclosure, I don't actually know. And I don't think that we'll ever get anything from the president because, from what you and I have probably realized, he's not in the need to know. He doesn't have the highest clearance level of government to know a lot of these things. And some of these things are buried so much inside of these deep black budget projects or organizations within other organizations, hidden within other organizations. It's such a fucking convoluted mess of where do you even start to look for someone at the top of that position, that someone would have to compile all the information and give it to him for him to present for that disclosure to happen, which I just don't think is very likely. I think the only way all this information comes out is if there's either a complete collapse of society, which I'm hoping there isn't, or if something like Independence Day movie level happens where these ships are here and there's no denying it for even any skeptic because, hey, just look out your fucking window, idiot. I think it has to
Yeah.
get to that point for that to happen. And so kind of what you're saying, I think what's more intriguing to me is less about are we seeing these ships, and it's more about if we accept this as a actual thing that's happening, what does that mean for society and the world at large? And the answer might mean nothing. Business goes on as usual. They've been here, they've always been here. If you haven't seen it, it's just because the world is so big, but they're being seen by everybody. That might not change, And so I don't know, you know.
Yeah, the implications are huge, man. Like, just even thinking about what could happen once disclosure happens. I think that now there's a new term called catastrophic disclosure. Have you heard about that?
No, I have not.
No. So there's catastrophic disclosure that people are raving on about, and I guess it implies that it's kind of like a way of, because we have right now slow drip disclosure happening
Mhm.
right now apparently, and then there's catastrophic disclosure where things will go completely to shit if that information were to be officially stated. um, Disclosure, and it's this big thing that people are talking about. The National Security Agency actually has a page on it. But yeah, it's I keep hearing about it, catastrophic disclosure, and it's something that I hope doesn't happen because it sounds catastrophic. um, but yeah, I wouldn't want President Biden to be our disclosure president. Uh, that would not be good at all. There's actually, did you ever see the video of him being asked about UFOs and his knowledge of it? Did you ever see that video?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so he was actually asked once about it, and then let me share my screen real quick. Let me see. Check this out.
Says that there is footage and records of objects in the skies, these unidentified aerial phenomenon, and he says we don't know exactly what they are. What do you think that it is?
I would ask him again. Thank you. Come on, Walt, let's go.
Old grandpa jokes.
So that's the most that we ever got out of Joe Biden about UFOs.
Yeah. I'm sure
Yeah.
I don't even know. I'm so like unqualified to speak on Joe Biden and all the happenings in his world. Um I guess maybe I've just given up on the hope of like classic disclosure that people talk about.
Yeah.
To where I'm kind of just over it. I think at this point,
Yeah.
unless it's going to affect my day-to-day life, it's hard for me to gain significant interest. I think where I'm interested is just like the actual experiences of people who have had these things or have seen these things or interacted with these things, like Travis Walton as an example, someone who not only saw it, experienced it, but he also experienced beings, and he was on the craft, he was abducted, he was returned. I mean, that story is so fascinating to me. So I'm really interested in the stories behind it, and I would love for these stories to be confirmed. But I guess I think the myth of like this community is that you need the government to say, "Oh yes, this is real," for us to finally start believing it. I think that
Right.
I'm already on the side of I'm willing to start believing it already, regardless of what the government says, because they're going to do their own thing and it's all just smoke
Same.
and mirrors, anyways.
Exactly. Exactly. But of course, we always long and crave that official disclosure. I mean, by default, I guess it's just like an innate thing that we seek. Um, I guess that might just be me. But um, have you heard of the Chris Bledsoe
No,
story?
what is that?
So Chris Bledsoe was just an ordinary guy. He had a business. I think he was like a contractor or something. Um, and he had many experiences with extraterrestrial, or I'm sorry, I say extraterrestrial, but with lights in the sky. It started off as lights, and to this day, he still sees these lights. It's a pretty crazy story, but apparently it was him and his family, him and his two sons, from what I recall. They were out in the woods one night, and I could be butchering the story because I still got to read more up on it. But apparently, he saw these lights in the sky, and they communicated with him, and it was more of like a spiritual experience. And then the CIA started getting involved and actually investigating him and his family. Um, and essentially, even NASA got involved as well. Uh, and they started investigating him and proving that there was something there. It's a very interesting story. I would like to talk about it in another episode because it's one for the books for sure. Um, but before we wrap up, let's go ahead and take a look at that new UFO video that TMZ released. Uh, let's pull it up. Yeah, it's pretty interesting, man. I don't know. I don't know what to
Pull
think
it
of
up
it.
on your and share your screen real quick.
Yeah. Might want to lower the volume. That's Jeremy Corbell. Whoops.
This is black hot. You see the object just went to white, and you'll see it going from white to black, white to black. And that's basically showing the heat differential. So it's going like hot and cold, hot and cold. The problem was the optics platform was jammed. These individuals who target with these platforms, they can shoot out an Al-Qaeda tire at 27 miles away, but not being able to lock it was one of the first signs that something's weird. I was able to find direct eyewitnesses and corroborate that this event did happen. When individuals would target in on it with the optics, the way it was described, each of these hanging things They were stiff, like they weren't moving. They had geometric form, like scales, what was said to be scales, like an armor. There were also people with night vision who were out and they were tasked to go look for it. Couldn't see it on the night vision. Only in the thermal spectrum could it be seen. But anything that looks like that appears to have a payload, that's a big deal. It could be dangerous. So these are high priority. But what happened is there were a couple other nations involved and the feeds were just shut immediately. So that put me on high alert too. Why is it completely being shut down? But that's not all it did. It goes out over a body of water. I'm told it stops on a dime, descends into the water, stiff into the water. And for 17 minutes, nothing. And boom, this thing comes up out of the water and shoots off at 45 degrees, just like that. It looks very much like what I've heard that has made incursions into nuclear facilities, because I know for sure, fact of the matter, there is footage from inside a nuclear facility. And I'll just say it, Pantex, that's the one, man. Something that appears identical to this moves between these nuclear silos and shot off again at a 45-degree angle.
See, I wish we had footage of it being shot up at a 45-degree angle, because from that video, you only see it move very, very slowly.
Yeah.
You know?
What was that last thing
And
he was
one
saying
of the-
about Pantex? What was that?
These optic systems can reach. When it gets to that point where it's over the water, every source that I have talked with who is aware of this footage, that footage exists. You've got a UFO or UAP descends into the water stiff, comes back up, and then shoots off 45 degrees. Now, this was taken by an intelligence agency and buried. So I don't know, man. These are the cases that spark me. I don't know what this is. I just know when I get military filmed UAP footage designated where people risk getting that to me, I take it as serious as it sounds, and I try to get to the bottom of it. And it's hard, you know, but I do have a number of direct eyewitnesses now.
Yeah, I wish we had footage of the thing actually zooming, you know, or like moving in a fast pattern. That would indicate one of the 5 observables, which, you know, rather than it just floating and kind of camoing. But it is pretty interesting. It looks like it's like camouflaging, like in and out.
Object just went to white, and you'll see it going from white
to black.
White to black, and that's basically showing the
See,
heat
like if we
differentials.
okay, so it looks like, see right here where it crosses like that black thing right there. It looks like it's like camouflaging,
Well,
rather than it turning
well,
white.
what he said is
right?
that we're not looking at the actual color, right? What we're seeing
Differential.
is the temperature difference between that and the buildings behind it. So the color,
Gotcha.
the black or the white, we're actually seeing temperature, cold or hot. And so,
Gotcha,
you know,
gotcha.
it's essentially the same color as the buildings behind it, you know. And then when it turns black,
Right.
it's getting
That
a
makes
lot hotter. I guess to me, at first
Right.
glance, it looked like some type of balloon. Like if nobody told me that was a UFO, you might assume it was like a balloon of some sort, right?
Right.
Go back to the video, share the screen.
Platform.
But at the same time, yeah, I guess the whole story behind it and the way he presents it, I mean, it's a very fascinating story if true. But like you said, I think what we missed a little bit of that middle part. I don't know what he was saying about Pantex, but it sounded like there was another one that they got on a different video that was the same thing. And then it sounded like he said that video does exist, but obviously it wasn't leaked to him. You know what I'm saying?
Right. See, that would have been great, but I mean, I guess it's all we got right now.
Yeah.
Which it does look like a balloon,
Is this the
man.
same one that looks like Kermit the Frog from a couple months ago?
No, I don't think
It's a
so.
different one.
No, I think that's a
Yeah,
different
that one
one.
looks weird.
Yeah. Yeah, which one's that one? Let me see. Kermit the Frog.
It was another one that was
Yeah.
released by Jeremy Corbell, and it looked like a fucking weird craft like that, but it was, yeah, it looked like just a floating Kermit the Frog portrait. Are you looking it up now?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Again, a lot of this is fascinating, but like it would be more appealing if we heard from the guy who was recording that video, right? That's kind of what makes the Tic Tac UFO incident so compelling is all the data that was recorded around that and all the whistleblowers that came out about that, right? But it's hard to make
Right.
it's hard to conceptualize half these fucking videos if it's just Jeremy Corbell talking in that room, right? But the fact that it is military video is fascinating. Yeah, like this one looks like Kermit the Frog. Don't even know what to make of that UFO, but yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get some answers soon. Hopefully. We'll see. But I feel like the more that they release to us, I think it's a step in the right direction, but for how long? Because I'm personally getting like kind of tired of it, of hearing the same thing and this whole slow drip process, like and seeing figures within the UFO community saying that they have a specific amount of evidence or evidence that they can't disclose out to the public. Um, they complain about the gatekeepers, yet they're gatekeeping information, right? That they were entrusted with, and that's something that also aggravates me to this day. Um, we just want answers, man. That's it.
Yeah. But if we got answers, then we wouldn't have anything
But
to talk about anymore, right?
that's a good point. Unless they they continue giving us more nuggets. I just want a beefy one.
Yeah. I want to interact with an alien species, I want to shake
Me too.
hands. I want to play with the technology. I want to see what's possible. I want to interview an alien, bro.
Yeah, dude, can you imagine? That would be
Trippy
sick.
as fuck.
Having a podcast with an alien, dude. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen.
One of these
Let's make it
days,
happen.
maybe episode 100, we'll
Yeah.
interview an alien. Episode 1, I don't even know what
That
to
would be
make
the
of it
day.
so far. I feel like we've kind of just been all over the map.
We really have. Hey, it's all good though. We did cover a lot though. I mean, we did cover a lot of what's been going on for
Yeah.
sure. And yeah,
Talk
I
about
love
how
it.
you like
I love
what
it.
talk about what you see like this podcast kind of turn it into. I mean, if someone's even listening at this point, it seems like they're obviously interested in listening. I could just be talking to an empty void at this moment, but a black hole, right? We're all about those black holes over here. So, what do you see like the next few episodes kind of looking like and turning into?
Yeah. I think that it's all about consistency, of course. As a creator, as creators, it's all about consistency and getting into the flow of things. I think that I could see it turning into something that maybe eventually we could get some guests on for sure, from within the community, because there's only so many perspectives that we have together combined. Like you have certain ideas, I have my own ideas and my own opinions, and I feel like having that like a different guest would help bring more conversations, and explore different, different topics. But I feel like, we did cover a lot of UFO stuff in this episode, and I don't want to pigeonhole ourselves, into UFOs primarily, because as your channel explores, multiple different, topics, I feel like that would be really cool to explore, uh, the pyramids, and what's going on with the cover up there, and the Sphinx. Uh, yeah, that video really was really really
Yeah.
crazy, and yeah, the one you made. But yeah, I don't see it, becoming a UFO channel, you know, although the majority of what we spoke about was
Yeah.
UFOs.
No, I think more than anything, this what I imagine this turning into, I don't see this as like a purely guest-based podcast. Um, if we start trying to play the game of just guest-based, I mean, we're playing a game where we don't even value content like that we can create ourselves. And I think that's the cool part is you and I are both content creators. And so what I really like about it is that we don't need the crutch of having some fucking random guest to bring us clout. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And I
Yeah.
think there's so many things going on every week of the fucking internet. There's new things that are just like going around. Like this week it was the Miami Mall incident. Next week who knows what it's going to be, but
Mhm.
I imagine this as almost like our way to broadcast our takes on these things in real time. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's what I look forward to
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, same here. And the reason why I brought up guests is because maybe eventually down the line, I don't know, I figured that it would be kind of like a good idea, not for cloud or anything, just to get their kind of their insight, because there's only so much that we
Yeah.
know that maybe other people could bring to the
Yeah.
table,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
and that's why I kind of envision that, maybe later on as the podcast grows. But yeah, I feel like there's so many things going on in real time. Like if you tune into the news, it's always something. So there's going to be plenty of us to talk about, plenty, and kind of get our takes and our reactions for
Yeah.
sure. Um, yeah,
Cool. So
totally.
we want to wrap up episode 1 right here.
Episode 1,
Yeah.
finito.